What's up? It's Max Sinclair here yet again, and today I'm going to be focusing on the really important topic of margin and how to find more margin with both e-commerce and B2B. My name is Max Sinclair. I'm founder of Snowball Creations. I run a paid ads agency, and we don't directly have like a remit to solve margin and run the business for people ultimately, because really that is your business, is the margins. But we do look to try and help where we can on it, because it's extremely important. If you have bad margins, it's almost impossible to get any marketing to work, let alone paid ads. So you need to be thinking about this and working to improve on it all the time, really, with your business. So let's start with e-commerce. So e-commerce margins, all of these vary massively. So if you're going to basically resell someone else's stuff, if you're drop shipping very often, if you are ultimately not the person creating the product, you will likely have smaller margins. Like some people might only have, say, 10 to 20% margins. If you go to fully create your entire product for yourself, you'll have even better margins. If your product is not only made by you, but nobody else makes it, then your margins can become truly exceptional. So really, how you improve on e-commerce margins is to look to go closer and closer to the source, is one really important factor. So let's say, for example, you are going to be making bamboo toothbrushes. This is my favorite random example I always go to. A bamboo toothbrush. If you were to just resell another brand's bamboo toothbrush, maybe they would give you a wholesale price because you're going to buy 10,000 of them. So you get a 20% discount. You sell them for 10%, whatever. Let's just say you sell them at the same price. So that means you're going to have a 20% margin, for example, because you got a wholesale discount, and they're happy to sell them to you for that because they know that they've just sold 10,000 units. So that's the most basic low-level approach to this. And then a further step along might be that you then take those bamboo toothbrushes and you brand them. You give them some fancy designs, and that adds value because your brand has value. So then you can charge an extra 10, 20%. So now your margins are maybe 20, 30, 40%. And then the next step up, we go to, rather than like say UK or an American company, you might get your bamboo toothbrushes from China or from any other country where ultimately it's cheap to make these products, and get them shipped over and then branded. So then the product is cheaper and you've added value with your branding. And so the combination of those things might mean that you get to more like 40, 50, 60, 70% margin. And then the very last step to this is to go even further than that, is to go to somewhere like China or Asia in general, but lots of like South America, loads of places all around the world where there's like lower costs for human labor, basically, is what's happening here. And you actually build out the entire production process yourself. So you own that process. So really all of this is owning more and more of that process for yourself. And that leads you to the very best margins where you can get up to kind of 80, 90% margin, which is just really powerful. So then, most of your margin is profit, or most of the sales revenue that you create is profit. And then that means that every, pound you spend to get a sale, if you get £2 back, you're making £1.80, for example, in profit from that. So you're extremely profitable if you were to get 2 times ROAS in that position. Whereas if you were only at, say, 50% profit, and we made you £2 in ads, in sales, for every £1 spent in ads, you would only just break even. So that's the power of margin within the e-commerce. And then we have B2B. So we are a B2B company. We do lead gen for ourselves. We do lead gen for a huge number of other kinds of companies. We do like kind of services, like facilities. We do other agencies, all sorts of different types of businesses. And ultimately, again, you really have a similar logic of how much of the service are you personally doing, and in-house. Are you doing it in-house or are you outsourcing it? For example, some agencies, this isn't for us as a paid ads agency, but some agencies will be one person who is really kind of like a central unit, and they introduce you. They work with your company, but then they work with a Facebook consultant, they work with a Google Ads consultant, and they work with, let's say, an email marketing person.
We're a team.
And each of those different people does the service for this particular company, but there's this person in the middle that works with you directly, and they do the kind of strategy stuff. So in that situation, that strategy person will actually have much worse margins because he or she has to pay these consultants and contractors to do the work, and so that margin can be a lot less. Whereas, let's say, for example, with Snowball Creations, we are a paid ads agency. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that at the start. So we do our own Google ads and Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, etc. So when somebody works with us, we have better margins because ultimately the only cost is internally within our team. And that's one of the really important parts to making sure, it's kind of a first step, I'd say, really, of making sure you have good margins. Then the other part to this, one of the really important ones with B2B and lead gen is that you're really just charging enough. So if you are starting out, especially let's say again with a paid ads agency, for example, or an SEO agency, or any other kind of service, maybe you charge less at the beginning because you're trying to prove yourself still for some reason. So that's going to leave you with less margin, and that's ultimately just the reality of it, that when you start out, you don't have the results, maybe you're less experienced, so you're not able to charge as much. Whereas as you progress and you mature as a business and you just deliver better and better results, you can charge more and more and more. So ultimately, be better at what you do. That's the ultimate hack for charging, having better margins in the B2B space. If you are exceptionally good at what you do, then you ultimately can charge considerably more than anybody else. You have better margins and so a much healthier business. And then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy too, because you have more resources to then invest into the service, and it improves and improves and improves. And I'd say that there's a couple which contrast across both of these, e-commerce and B2B. One of them is something I mentioned right at the beginning. It's being unique. So there's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy. I'd highly recommend it. And it talks about blue oceans and red oceans. Red oceans are competitive. They are things that have existed for a long time. Let's say, for example, supermarkets, selling goods inside supermarkets. If you're trying to sell washing up liquid, that's a red ocean. It's extremely competitive. It's been around for a very long time. And so the margins are very, very small. Whereas blue ocean is where there is nobody else that's competing with you on it, or at least there's very few people competing. Pretty much everybody has competition. It's just different formats of that competition. But let's say Google is a good example, or Apple is another good example, where they are technically in competitive places. Google's the best example, really. They are technically competing, so they have people like Bing and DuckDuckGo and others, but ultimately they aren't. They are really a monopoly. Let's be realistic here. They own I can't remember what it is exactly, it's 60-70% of the search market. And so that is powerful because they can demand this big margin and make so much more money because they have essentially a monopoly. So monopolies are great for margins. So that works for e-commerce as well as B2B. If we were an agency that offered a channel that nobody else had figured out yet, that would be a little monopoly of our own and we could charge a lot more. If you're an e-commerce brand and you had some unique bamboo toothbrush which has some innovative technology which makes your teeth pearly white within one brush, then that would be a monopoly and you could charge a lot more and you could have a much better margin. So ultimately trying to be unique and original and have things that nobody else can do. And generally how you do that is by niching down. That's like a really big one that goes across both. So I hope this stuff's helped. Really, margin is extremely crucial to kind of figure out and always be working to improve on it. Often you have to start with smaller margins, is quite the case. But as I mentioned, it's quite self-fulfilling. So it's better to start your business with larger margins, and then that will allow you, it might be a little bit slower to get sales, but it will allow you to be a healthier business, and so invest more into the product or service, and so give a better result to the customers, which will then be a self-fulfilling prophecy to have it get better and better and better, and then you're able to charge more and more and more. So I wish you luck with this. I hope it's helped. whether you are e-commerce or B2B. And otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday.